Wolfpack, what's going on? Your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves. Here, with one of my favorite shows of the Week 11 Waiver Wire and FAAB show. I know it's one of our more popular shows too, so come on in. We'll go through all the pickups of the week, whether you're catching it live with us here, get all those questions in, of course, on the stream or catching the replay. Thank you so much for being here. We'll go through my top 15 in order, as I always preface it. You might have different team needs. You can reorganize these as much as you need, as well as team needs in the sense of positions, but also do you need upside, long-term stashes versus immediate usability, those types of things. That's where the mailbag comes in. Let us know what your situation is, where you need the most help. And as always, if you are willing to, that thumbs up does help us get out to more people. We had nearly 50 likes on this last week. I would love to see that continue this week. As always, I'd like to start with the guys to check for first. And no surprise, A.J. Dillon, he's 72% rostered, so a very good chance he's not out there in your leagues. But should he be, he is 100% a guy to spend every remaining cent that you have. I know it's only a 1 to 2 week injury for Aaron Jones with a very, very slight MCL, a mild, they're calling it according to Adam Schefter, sprain of his MCL. But again, 1 to 2 weeks of a talent like A.J. Dillon, we see it each and every week as the lead featured back. Decent matchups, too. It's not like a smash spots, but Minnesota, middle of the pack against the defense, against the run. Same with the Rams, middle of the pack defense against the run. And the volume should be astronomical with Aaron Jones sidelined for a good portion of the game. We saw 21 carries go to A.J. Dillon. He didn't do a whole ton, 66 yards, but he also did have 2 touchdowns on the ground. He was rumbling down the sideline as a receiver with 62 yards on 2 catches as well. We'd seen that involvement picking up more and more with A.J. Dillon the previous weeks. In fact, he had all the catches from running backs just 2 weeks ago. So even when Jones returns, there's definitely some appeal to this guy. Again, probably not out there in your leagues, but if he is, you're probably going to get 2 or so starts given that they have a week 13 bye and a very juicy playoff schedule should there be a setback. Chicago, Baltimore, bottom 10 against the run. Cleveland and Minnesota, also solid matchups. You just saw what Rhamondre Stevenson did to Cleveland. I'm sure A.J. Dillon could do the same. Speaking of Baltimore, Rashad Bateman would be by far my top priority. He's 50% rostered right now at wide receiver. Should he somehow still be out there? I mean, we've been talking about this guy for 7 straight weeks. It's about damn time he is 100% rostered. Just from the eyeball test, I mean, is there a clearer number 1 alpha ready to emerge than Rashad Bateman, making one-handed stabs, reaching every time the ball went his direction? He made enormous plays time and time again. You have to imagine at some point, only 66%, that has to jump up. The team is doing themselves a severe disservice, the Ravens are, by not having Rashad Bateman near 100% of the snaps, similar to Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. I don't know why they're not putting their playmakers out there for every single snap. Makes no sense to me, but they have to, at some point, stop using these gross 3 tight end sets. Get Sammy Watkins and that costly fumble the fuck out. No reason to have him out there at all. Why is Duvernay seeing so much time? Rashad Bateman is clearly the next great alpha receiver. Dynasty leaguers, you got to feel great about this guy. With every play you see him make, 14 PPR points, 8 targets, 6 catches, 80 yards. All of those were season highs or tied season highs. Wide receiver 21, his highest receiver finish. But again, it's just the plays you're seeing him make. He should be seeing 10-plus looks a week, and I don't think that's going to be unreasonable given the inefficiency of Marquise Brown lately. Rashad Bateman's the clear-cut chain mover. I think 80% of his catches have now gone for first downs. He is the Stephon Diggs comparisons. They don't look all that unrealistic at this point. Another fantastic rookie wide receiver is Elijah Moore, finally stepping into his own. I love this guy coming into the year. I dropped him most often in my redraft leagues where I had him. And of course, with Zach Wilson out, he goes banana land. 5th in fantasy points across his last 3 weeks. Caught a touchdown from 3 different QBs. None of them are Zach Wilson. He's only seen the 26th in targets, though, 40th in routes run, so the usage isn't all that great. It's insane that he is the 5th in fantasy points. That's how efficient this guy is. That's how talented he is. If you get a spike, there's both sides of the coin, right? He can't remain this efficient, right? Well, yeah, maybe not, but he also will continue to see that workload spike. The only concern here is, does he continue to skyrocket with Zach Wilson back, who's been holding him back clearly all year? We'll find out. But 50% roster, take a look for him. And also check for Van Jefferson. I know he got dropped in a lot of leagues when they signed OBJ, only to have Robert Woods then tear his ACL, and he's going to be done for the year. So Van Jefferson could definitely carve out some meaningful volume here. 7 targets this last week. Solid. Only turned it into 3 catches and 54 yards, but OBJ already quitting on a route and then an interception happens, like just not endearing himself by any means. They do have a bye week, so if you need to fill the bye week the Blues rather, you might need to go elsewhere, but a pretty soft schedule moving forward. Top 12 in terms of receiver points allowed from here on out rest of the season. Minnesota and Baltimore across his last 2. I see Van Jefferson being a quality play down the stretch. But let's now get into the guys that are under 50% rostered. Again, if you guys don't mind sharing this out, growing the pack, keeping us rolling here. And of course, if you haven't subbed already, if you like what you're hearing, especially by the end, if you enjoy the show, please consider giving us that sub. We're getting closer and closer. It seems like we're getting 10 to 20 each and every week to that goal of 2,000. We're about 120 away now. Help us out, Wolfpack. Continue to bring more people in. Continue to get those thumbs up. It helps us out. I wouldn't keep begging for it if it didn't. Let's get on into who is under 50% roster. Rhamondre Stevenson got a huge injection of rostership this past weekend, and deservedly so. We saw what happened. I tweeted out Rhamondre for 2 touchdowns. Why not? Entering the day, I was at the game. My God, this guy can run. Churning after every single time he got hit. I haven't even looked up the yards after contact he must have had this week, but there's no way one person's ever taking this guy down. An absolute bull, especially at the red zone. Ultimately ran in 2 scores for 100 yards as well. Was the running back 1 in fantasy this week. Now, granted, Damian Harris will be back. So why is this guy number 1, Wolf? Like, ultimately, is he just going to go back to a committee lifestyle? Probably. But the fact of the matter is, we just saw this guy has legitimate top 10 upside if Harris ever misses time, or if Belichick just decides this damn rookie gives me so much more. We saw 69% rushing share and 20% target share. That hasn't happened since, 2011? I believe it ended up. Hold on, let me look this up. It's just a crazy stat, courtesy of JJ Zacharyson. 20% target share, 69% rushing share. That hasn't happened. It's only happened 4 times in the Bill Belichick era. That's happened 4 times in 100 games since 2011. That's insane. 25 of the opportunities went to him compared to 6 and 6 for Bolden and Taylor. He was the clear feature back. Again, I understand that Damian Harris is going to eat into his workload, but there's nobody with this type of upside on waiver wires at this point. I think he's worth splurging the rest of your budget for, even if he's not going to be a monster this week. And granted, they're playing on a short week. Maybe you do get him back. Harris did return to practice on Tuesday, so it's still unclear. He's not officially cleared the concussion protocol. We get Stevenson against Atlanta this week as the same role. He'll be a top 5 running back yet again. So definitely well worth splurging that budget for, even if he's stuck in a committee, and maybe, just maybe, he pulls forward as the main guy. We also got Cam Newton. If you're quarterback needy, I say 15% plus here, but you could go even higher than that. He's going to be the starter this week. At least they're preparing for him to be the starter. He's going to be the starter. He already ran in 2 touchdowns. Remember, Sam Darnold was leading the NFL in rushing TDs at one point. Joe Brady loves the RPOs, and Cam Newton, we've never seen him get a chance to thrive in this offense. I think he's going to destroy at the goal line on RPOs. Maybe a little bit of ding to our guy Christian McCaffrey's value, but certainly Cam Newton's Konami code upside remains unparalleled since 2012. Every single season of his career. Quarterback 4, quarterback 2, quarterback 9, quarterback 1, quarterback 17, down year, quarterback 2, quarterback 12 in 14 games played. Got hurt in 2019, was the quarterback 16 with New England and no weapons last year. So he's been top 10 or top 12 will kind of is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of 8 seasons he's played. That's pretty damn impressive. And if you went on a point per game basis, he'd be top 10 in all of those, with top 5 upside in half of those seasons. That's what the Konami upside does. He's got great weapons around him with McCaffrey, with DJ Moore. I know Robbie Anderson, but still stretching the field. This is still a guy with a big arm. We could easily see Cam have himself a good day. Never mind that he gets the football team coming up this week, the most points allowed to quarterbacks. And then Atlanta coming up the week after before his bye. He's got the easiest schedule heading into the playoffs. Now, in the fantasy playoffs, he's got the most difficult fantasy schedule. So he might carry you, he might help you if you're quarterback needy, but you might have to look at other options there too. Still, Whether you're blocking opponents from a clear-cut 20-plus fantasy point upside day against Washington, or whether you need that injected in your lineup, I think Cam Newton is a clear-cut top-end quarterback addition. Will be top 12 rest of the season, and certainly these next 3 weeks in a cakewalk matchup. Jeff Wilson, though, not all too far behind in terms of a priority pickup. And this was even before we had some injury news. I thought Wilson would be one of the better pickups this week. Only 21% roster. I think you should spend about 10 to 15% of your FAAB. We are also at the point of the season, though, where FAAB, it's like, it starts to lose. Like, this is what he's probably worth. But, hey, if you have 100% of your FAAB at this point and there's someone else you think is going to outbid you, you know it's going to take 30 to get it done, you might have to do that, right? That's where we're at this season. So FAAB strategy, it all depends on where your league's at, where you're at, too. I give you the estimate of how I value him compared to the rest of the waiver wire guys. But your league might be in a different spot. Let's talk about Jeffrey Wilson. Didn't look all that impressive. 10 carries for, 28 yards. Granted, one of those was a complete broken play. He lost like 8 yards on it. So let's call it 9 carries for like 37 yards. That sounds a whole lot better, over 4 yards a clip. Better than what we saw. Still was his first game action. He was churning. He was laying the shoulder down. All that, after contact beastliness. The fact that he even saw 10 carries, even with Eli Mitchell out there, was solid. He played some third downs, didn't get any targets, but still was in and used. And that was good to see because this is the best run scheme in the NFL. We know Eli Mitchell is the guy, but wait, Eli Mitchell suffered a broken finger in Monday Night Football's win. Now the team is hoping he practices this week. They're aiming that he's going to be able to play. They're optimistic on his outlook. So more than likely Eli Mitchell will be playing. But just a reminder that he's been dinged up in a bunch of different ways. He continues to play through it. At a certain point, it feels like he's bound to crash for a week or two. And Jeff Wilson, whenever he's been the spot starter here, let me remind you of New England, 3 touchdowns, over 30 fantasy points. In your fantasy championships last year, he had 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards, won people leagues down the stretch. He ultimately had 10 rushing touchdowns last year, led the 49ers, was 10th in the NFL in that category. He did lead the 49ers in rushing last year as well. So he's clearly had success in this game. He's been a championship league runner before. Maybe I'm just banking on past results, and I loved what he did for me, so I continue to give the guy a shot. But I just feel like sometimes history, especially in fantasy, continues to repeat itself. And when you've got Seattle, then Cincinnati, then Atlanta, then Tennessee, and then Houston for your last 5 matchups, all of those are bottom 10. If Mitchell's out for any of those, you'd have a top 15, maybe even top 10 running back on your hands. I think he's well worth the roster spot, well worth the ad, and well worth about 15% of your FAAB budget here. Another guy who continues to eat is Jordan Howard, who's now seen 41 carries across his last 3 weeks. Most recently, 12 carries for 83 yards when in the win over the Broncos. This is below Boston Scott in terms of usage. 13 opportunities for Scott versus 12 for Howard. Not a single target. That's kind of the rub with Howard. He never catches anything. But the rushing totals have been impressive. He did not find the end zone for the first time this week since across his last 3. My thing, though, is why is he 4 if Miles Sanders is coming back, right? Well, the Eagles have had a neutral rush rate of 68%. That is insane. That is by far the highest in the NFL over these last 3 weeks. And what has it done for their offense? Listen to some of these efficiency stats. Now, some of them seem like they're just completely made up. But Paul Hembenkides for the Eagles, since week 8, these last 3 games, 3.2 points per drive, first in NFL, 84.6 total QBR, first, 208.7 rush yards per game, first, 22 10-yard rushes, first, 54% third down percentage, first, 62% drive score percentage, first, 42.5 average drive distance, first, 51% success rate, and 79.8% efficiency, all first in the NFL. This offense has taken off by reestablishing the run, by creating this new identity among Jordan Howard's been the catalyst of this. So yes, I do think when Miles Sanders returns, that's going to hurt everybody's value in this backfield. But I have a feeling, and this is what the beat writers are speculating, that Jordan Howard remains a key part of this offense moving forward. So someone to definitely consider adding, even with Miles Sanders coming back. Then you stir in the fact that they have the easiest running schedule from here on out. Easiest path. Their schedule is a joke to every position, but including running backs. Definitely worth a look. Again, guys, if you're new here, you just got in, if you don't mind hitting that thumbs up to help us continue to grow and get out to more people, it would be so appreciated. Thank you, guys. Let's talk about D'Onta Foreman, who might be on the top of many people's lists here. Maybe he deserves to be up here. I think certainly has more upside than pretty much anyone we've talked about, including Rhamondre, unless we have an injury to Harris. Foreman might just walk right in this next week and be the number one back. He certainly was this last week with 11 carries for 30 yards. Not great, but did have 2 catches, 48 yards. Pretty solid, showing far more juice than either AP, who had 8 carries for 21 gross yards. Jerry McNichols, 4 carries, 7 yards. Neither is holding a candle to what Foreman is doing. And it's not that Foreman's like this ultimate sex machine running back that we got to be blowing every load we have over. I don't know where I'm going with any of this, but he did lead the team in snaps, in usage. He saw 48% of the carries compared to just 22% a week ago. If that continues to climb, and I imagine it will, given he is by far the best running back on this roster, he could end up becoming Derrick Henry light in terms of usage. I do think AP is going to always annoyingly be involved at the inside, when they're in the red zone. To me, it's still going to be a gross 3-headed system, and that's why I'm not splurging here to go get this guy. But there is the upside. He emerges in a very run-heavy attack as the main, clear-cut 65, 70% of the work. That's within the realm of possibility. So on that upside alone, he's certainly worth a roster spot, well worth about 10 to 15% of your FAAB, depending on what you need. If you don't need the immediate usability of a streamer, he could have the most upside of those running backs we've talked about as a stash. Gotta love Danny Arnold at tight end. If you're a tight end needy person, and pretty much all of us are, unless you have Travis Kelce, it's really hard to top the consistency of what Dan Arnold's done at the position. 24 targets in his last 3 games, 17 catches and 195 yards. Now, the touchdowns aren't coming because it's a terrible offense. There's not much surprise there, but he ran 80% of the routes, saw 7 targets and a 20% share this last week. He is now gone for 24, 12%, 19%, 25%, and 20% target share in his last 5 games since he's arrived in Jacksonville. 3rd in targets, 3rd in catches, 5th in yards among tight ends in that span, as well as 8th in half PPR fantasy points. Very, very solid numbers for Dan Arnold since he's become a Jacksonville Jaguar, and I don't see any reason why that won't continue with a soft passing game schedule. Trevor Lawrence has the 5th easiest schedule from here on out among QBs. I think Dan Arnold can continue to get it done, as can, we'll talk about Jamal Agnew in a second, I guess. I do have Sterling Shepard just a bit higher, and here's why. Among all these guys we've talked about, no one has shown the NFL pedigree of Sterling Shepard when he's healthy. Huge rub. He's missed a ton of time these last few weeks in this entire season and really in his career. But across the last 5 weeks since he's played full games, not the last 5 weeks, rather, dating back to last year, we've had 5 full games. 8 receptions on 10 targets, 112 and 1 TD, wide receiver 4. 9 receptions on 12 targets, 77 yards and a TD, wide receiver 11. 7 receptions on 9 targets, 113 yards and a TD, wide receiver 8. 9 receptions on 10 targets, 94 yards, wide receiver 21. 10 receptions on 14 targets, 76 yards, wide receiver 19. So he's been a top 21 receiver in all 5 of his last healthy games. He's seen 10 or more targets in all but one of those, and that was a 9-target day. 7 or more catches across all those, 75 yards or more in all those, and a touchdown in 3 of his last 5 healthy games. That's a wide receiver 1 in fantasy, if and when he's healthy. Of course, the big rub there, but at only 34% rostered, there's far, far less certainty on the waiver wire than Sterling Shepard's health. At least if this guy is healthy and playing, he's going to be a very viable wide receiver 2 for you with a decent enough schedule moving forward for the Giants. Sterling Shepard's going to be like that forgotten, unsexy upside type of guy. Kind of on the radar these days, though, a little more sex appeal, I guess you could say, is Jamal Agnew, the Swagnew. Didn't have a single catch last week and still finished as the wide receiver 11 because he had 3 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. Has become that Cordarrelle Patterson light for the Jaguars, as the beat writers were speculating he would be during their bye week. He now has 70 yards or a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 weeks. Very, very viable. I know it's a gross offense, but he's become the main vein of this offense in addition to Dan Arnold. Pretty wild stuff here. I think he's well worth about 12 to 15% or so of your FAAB here. Could be a very viable wide receiver 3 here moving forward. And my favorite wide receiver other than Sterling Shepard on this list, assuming, of course, Bateman, Elijah Moore, those guys are gone. I do think Jamal Agnew going to be pretty steady the rest of the season. And I know he didn't have a catch this last week, but he's averaged an 18% target share, 7.2 targets per game since DJ Chark sat. He's been the wide receiver 31 in fantasy. So, he has been a viable wide receiver 3 all year. Well worth a solid FAAB bid as a season-long option. Do you think Marcus Johnson has a lot of streaming appeal these next few weeks? He ran the most routes the last time Julio Jones missed the game, and yet again walked right on into that role. Ended up leading the Titans in targets with 6, turned them in to 100 yards as well. Also led the receivers with a 22% target share. Julio hasn't hit that high of a share in a single game this year. Guy just makes plays every time he gets a chuck to him. I think since Jones is on that IR, you got at least 2 to 3 more very viable streaming spots for Marcus Johnson. I think bye week blues hit you. This is not a bad option to turn to if you miss out on Jamal Agnew. Again, at tight end, we talk about Dan Arnold, definitely my favorite, the steadiest guy, but in terms of scoring, Conklin hitting the end zone not once but twice this last week. He ran a route on 77% of Kirk Cousins' dropbacks. It was only 11 yards and 3 catches on his 5 targets, but the 2 scores are crucial here. He is definitely an end zone beast, and he does have every now and again a big play come out down the seams for him. Solid role and a solid passing attack. What more can you ask for a tight end? At only 30% rostered, I think he should be well over half of that. I think he's well worth 10% or so of your FAAB. Indeed, Mr. Conklin. Wayne Gallman, if you need a desperation streamer, Cordarrelle Patterson did get a limited practice in, so maybe he's not going to miss any time. There's some speculation he might miss 2 to 3 weeks, and then he practices in a limited fashion today, so maybe he's going to play. If he does, though, could be if he sits, rather, Wayne Gallman could be a very viable stream. He saw 15 carries. Now, 9 of the carries came after the Cowboys had a 43-3 lead. Maybe they're just trying to get some burns, see what we have in this guy. He still was significantly more productive than anything we've seen out of gross-ass Mike Davis. If Cordarrelle misses the game, I'd rather play Gallman than Mike Davis. I really don't want to have to play either of them. But the Pats linebackers, Durnas had himself a solid day. The defense is kind of gelling, but not against running backs necessarily. So I think Wayne Gallman is a very viable stream. I put him at about 8% of the FAAB. If you don't need a streamer, don't even consider him. If you do need a streamer, you're looking at 8 to 10% of your budget to go get him. If you miss out on Cam at QB, I think Jimmy Garoppolo, nobody wants to start Garoppolo. And this week, 182 yards and 2 TDs. Solid 15-ish points, but entering the week, he was the number 1 scoring QB across his last 2 with 30 points against Chicago, 22 against Arizona. So we can't pretend like there's no upside here. He had 2 rushing touchdowns just a couple weeks ago, over 300 yards passing entering Monday Night Football. Again, didn't make it this past week, but we talked about the easy schedule for Jeff Wilson. It's not like those teams are any good against the pass either. And so when you got Houston in your fantasy championship, Tennessee the week before, Atlanta the week before that, Seattle and Cincy heading into those 2 weeks, you got room. At this point, it seems like the Trey Lance experiment isn't going to happen this year. It's too bad. I think he'd be a season winner if it ever did. Doesn't mean Jimmy Garoppolo can't be. The upside is certainly more limited because he doesn't have the wheels of Trey Lance, who still has the 3rd highest rushing total among QBs on the year in his 1 start. It's just fantasy dreams washed down the drain, unfortunately. But Garoppolo could be meaningful this past next few weeks with an easy schedule, getting it done. Not a bad guy to consider. Worth about 5% of your FAAB if you need a streamer. Last 3 here. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 28% roster. Didn't do a whole lot this last week, but it was a tough matchup for the guy. And now they get the Lions, Baltimore's pathetic secondary that's given up the most big plays. I want to emphasize with that. The Baltimore defense is like the opposite of bend, don't break. They're break, don't bend. And 3rd and 1, they'll stifle any offense. But on 1st and 10, they'll give up 50 plays like no other. Most big plays allowed in the NFL. And now we've got him, Donovan Peoples-Jones, accounting for 3 of the team's 7 targets of 20-plus yards these last 2 weeks. He's got 13 of his 35 deep attempts have gone for Baker Mayfield towards Donovan Peoples-Jones. That's almost 40% of the deep looks going his way. And he gets it done every time. It's better chemistry than Odell Beckham with Baker. I think with these big play defenses coming up, Lions again, Baltimore twice, Packers, all very viable matchups for Donovan Peoples-Jones to go deep and burn some people. Godwin Igwe, I can't even pretend to know how to pronounce this guy's at 0% rostered name for the Lions. But we have to consider whoever this creature is, because he had a beautiful looking touchdown run, and we shouldn't just overreact to 1 touchdown, and that's not what we're doing here. He did look really good on it, though. But more importantly, He looks like a great stash because Jamar Jefferson, who was the second man up, was carted off the field. We haven't seen Jamal Williams practice in about 4 weeks. I know DeAndre Swift handled 33 carries. I think that was out of necessity. Maybe not. Maybe, taking over Dan Campbell wants to just feed his back. Could be solid. But Swift, we've seen have injury concerns. I imagine we get a little bit more viable volume just on his own, even if Swift stays healthy the rest of the year for this Godwin creature, who, again, looks solid. Solid pass catcher. That's kind of what he made his name out in college, at least from what I've read. I can't pretend like I've studied any film from the guy yet. But if you're looking at stashes, you could do worse, given how backfield-centric this passing attack is, this overall offense is. Just someone to consider. I've talked enough about him. And last but not least, at wide receiver, of all the guys, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up being the most valuable name we talked about should Claypool's injury linger. He was the clear-cut fill-in for Claypool in terms of the short receiving screens and get the yards after the catch, and he looked okay doing it. With Mason Rudolph at quarterback, 12 targets, hauled in 9 of them. Those 12 targets were second to only Deontay Johnson, the target monster. 9 catches were a team high, 63 receiving yards, also second on his team this week. So he's got that kind of like running back as a receiver mindset, 24.5% target share on the offense today. James Washington saw half the number of targets as McLoud. So I think a lot of people went to Washington as the natural fill-in, and it was McLoud who filled in that receiving role to a T. If Claypool continues to linger, yes, the Chargers is a tough matchup, but after this, the Steelers have the third easiest passing game schedule moving forward, and that's even factoring in a tough matchup against the Chargers. So I do think McLoud, if Claypool remains lingering in deeper leagues, a viable play for sure. Alrighty, folks, that's all we got. So now we will go on and hit that mailbag for you, folks. As we get to your questions, please consider giving us a likes up if you've liked what we've been talking about. If this has been valuable to you at all, it will continue to help us grow. Get those questions on, and we only got about 15, 20. This show usually ends up being one of the more popular ones. I hope it continues to grow. We'd love to answer more questions on that, but hey, we'll see what we get. Would you prioritize Fields over Newton rest of the season for Hectic Eclectic? Nice name. Like that one, Hectic. Good question, too. I would say this is close, very close. I think Cam Newton's rest of season schedule for these next 3 weeks makes him a priority. I think he's going to rank ahead of Justin Fields over these next 3 weeks. Now, when the fantasy playoffs hit, it kind of flips, and Justin Fields has the better schedule. So I hate to do a cop-out type of answer, but if you're more playoff-minded, that's what you're looking for out of your QB, you go Fields. If you need to get to the playoffs, you need somebody to stream right now, Newton's the no-brainer for me. Both of them playing, well, at least Fields playing the best ball of the season. Seems like he really turned a corner. Maybe Nagy's finally woken up and is going to start crafting this offense to his strengths. I don't know. We'll see. Definitely think Fields is worth bringing up as a solid pickup. He gets Detroit at least once coming up. Is it even this week? No, he gets Baltimore this week. Not a bad matchup either way there. Against a good Steelers defense, Fields looked really good. I would say, gun to my head, I'd rather have Newton. But it's really close. And again, playoffs are better for Fields. Whereas rest of season right now, these next 3 weeks are great for Newton, the best there is in the NFL. Wolf, I've won 2 in a row. Comeback is happening. 68-61. Hey, a win is indeed a win, Schneider. That is disgusting, rolling around, pillow fighting, tit wrestling, whatever you want to call it. Awful stuff. But hey, a win is a win. It doesn't matter. You got the W. I love the turnaround. Let's go, Schneider. Make those playoffs, baby. Let's see what happens. Eat Powder, what up? You're welcome for the hard work, and I appreciate you being here. What do you think of Jeff Wilson if Elijah's out? I think he'll be a top 20 minimum, maybe even top 15 running back. That's how good this scheme is. That's how good he has been when he's gotten volume within it. I'm into it. I'm absolutely into it. So sick, I dropped Stevenson instead of Jeff Wilson for Van Jefferson after losing Bobby Trees. Oh, I wish you did too, Giuseppe. I know we were live on Saturday, and ultimately, I think that news broke right after. I would have, it's Stevenson had just gotten cleared from concussion protocol. If it was a Sunday show, I would never have let that happen. But man, sorry to miss you on there. And I don't know that you're like Stevenson. Again, my favorite pickup of the week. So much upside, but there's no guarantee that we have another week like that if Harris is healthy, if they get back to their weird committee ways. But man, he looks so good. I don't know if that will. AJ Dillon pickup, that is where it's at, though. Absolutely. Like and share, people. Thank you so much, Giuseppe. That thumbs up does help us get out to more people, as do your shares, dropping us in any groups you're in, all that good stuff would really be so appreciated. Isaiah Alexis, a new name, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you're a repeat, but I don't recognize you. Welcome to the show. Hope you're enjoying it. Traded Michael Carter, Corey Davis, and Hawkinson for DK and Waller. What league let you get away with that? My good God, that's robbery. I'm always a fan of trading more players to get better talent, and you cleaned up talent. I know DK and Waller did not have their best of weeks here, but moving forward, that deal is an absolute home run, especially after what you saw from TJ Hawkinson. Carter also has the hardest running back schedule moving forward. I think you sold high. You did a great job there, Isaiah. Robert Moreno, should I hold on to Jeff Wilson or drop him for Stevenson? I'd rather have Stevenson than Jeff. I'd rather have Elijah more than Jeff. But I also, long-term investment, I do think Wilson has crazy upside at running back, especially if you need running back more than what you need at wide receiver. So tough call, Robert, and I would like to see how this plays out. Maybe you can drop your kicker for now and get one of the other guys and then see, does Mitchell play this week? Because if not, it could be as early as this week that Wilson takes that backfield over. We'll see. Godwin and Stevenson for A.J. Brown. I think Godwin and A.J. Brown's about a wash, Shia. So I don't think I do that. No, I prefer, A.J. Brown has a lower floor than Godwin. It's not even really close. We saw this last week. They can just take him out of the game with no other weapons there to defend. So yeah, I'd rather have Godwin and Stevenson myself. Oh, for the season, long-term. But yeah, I think all those guys are intriguing. I'd probably rank them Rhamondre, Elijah, and Jeff Wilson. DeAndre Carter, I think that's Emperor Roth Tiberius Kane. Welcome to the show. I think he's a worthy one. His role is increasing. He caught a touchdown this week. It's a tough offense for me to get overly excited about outside of McLaurin. So, yeah, it's a good name to toss out there for deeper leagues, but I have these other 15 definitely ahead of him. Start Deontay Johnson or Bateman for Rico Baptiste. I got to keep going, Deontay. I love Bateman. You heard me rave about him earlier if you were here, Rico. He is the absolute man, but Deontay's 13-plus targets nearly every week. This week was a little down, but no Big Ben. You got to keep Deontay rolling, especially if it's PPR. Understand it depends on your roster, but is Tony droppable? I do think so, Bulldog. It depends on, where you're at, but I think Shepard's the more consistent guy. Tony, as good as he is, he shouldn't be droppable, but Jason Garrett is that dumb. The dumbest play caller in the NFL right now. So, yeah, droppable. Is it time to drop Darrell? I don't think so. Not until we see what happens with CEH. Because we could get CEH back and Darrell remains like a 70% back, and then suddenly he's the best pickup of the second half of the season, right? So I'm holding on to him until CEH returns and until I see how that gets distributed. I don't want to cut him because it's too damn valuable. I have time to drop him. He just had 100 receiving yards, 9 catches. We haven't seen that from CEH once in his entire career. I don't think he's droppable now. What do you think of Gibson? I talked about him a lot yesterday, MP 1606. So anybody that missed the Monday show, I really think it's one of our best ones. We recap all of Sunday's action from a usage standpoint, who's rising, who's falling on my rest of season big board based on the touches, based on the production. And we talked about Gibson at length there, but to summarize it, career high in carries, rather, not just season high, career high in carries. The game script was perceived to be a negative one. It did flip in his favor, and he certainly capitalized. Looked as good as he's looked all year with that shin injury, looking like it might be part of the past. Correct? He was limited all week, so it came kind of out of nowhere. I think he's on the bench for a lot of people, and I think he deserved to be. I would be selling high as fast as I could, though. I think you can hype up how good he looked, the season high touches. He's back. He's fully healthy, which all might be true. But this was one of the rare times I think we're going to find this team in a positive script, especially now with Chase Young done for the year. I don't think this defense has any type of game like we just saw against Tom Brady. I don't know where that game came from. Insane. But we don't see that again. This was a defense that has been giving up the second most points to everybody in the NFL, the most points to quarterback. Like a bad defense, it's still a bad defense unless they had some huge dramatic shift across their bye week. I don't think that happened. So I would be trying to sell high. Maybe he's the season winner that just finally turned it around at the bye week. That happens. It certainly does. I would be on the opposite end. I'd be trying to sell. Foreman over Dearness. Now that Chubb's back, I don't know that I could drop Dearness. When Hunt and Chubb are back, okay, maybe Johnny Lau, but We've already seen it's kind of like Rhamondre, like I was just talking about. You know you're getting top 10 numbers if the guy in front of him is out. Foreman might be the steadiest in terms of volume from here on out, but is he ever going to be above running back 30 in a potential three-headed nightmare? I would rather have D'Ernest. I get it. If you really need like a starter, Foreman might get more volume, but what has it yielded so far? This entire backfield is disgusting. So I don't think so. Trading Dalvin for Connor and Jacobs. How do you think I did? You have McKissick and Harris, especially if that's Najee Harris. I don't know that you needed to go for these types of running backs, Michael. I think Connor gives you some win now leverage, though, which I know is what your team needs. So I think it's okay. But I would prefer the Dalvin side myself rest of season. Miss Stefani, need wide receiver help? Yeah, Mike Williams sucks. I don't know that you need faith right now. Sterling Shepard, best pickup for the potential streamer. Rob with Cam. I don't know. Maybe Rob gets it going with Cam. I'm not buying that. I'd much rather have Shepard, especially if you need someone usable. I'm guessing you heard the stats, Matt Feeney, but the targets, all that good stuff. Just to reiterate, 10, 12, 9, 10, 14 targets in his last 5 full games where he's played it. That's the rub. He gets hurt a lot, but he should be healthy coming off the bye. I would be prioritizing Shepard, assuming, of course, Matt, that Bateman's gone and Elijah Moore are gone. E. Moore already, but late TD saving. I like E. Moore. I'm glad you already have him. It's definitely worrisome, but until it cools off, like it should cool off. In terms of expected fantasy points, he's not all that high. Like we were saying, 26th in terms of total targets and 40th. Not great rankings, but 5th most points in fantasy. Talent like that, until Jack Wilson's back, I'm going to keep rolling him. Team's hurting with RB injuries. Zeke's the only constant for my man, Jeremiah Moore. That's a backfield you can double up on. It's not great, but you can. They're both talented enough. It's a good enough offense. So not the end of the world, Jeremiah. So MP is thinking that Gibson goes crazy. You're on the other side of me. 24 carries. Yeah, we said career high. Half the third downs. Okay. I mean, that's better. I didn't notice all that. So that's great to know the snaps, especially on third downs, were better. That would be the more indicative stat. If he's going to actually play third downs, I want to see that in a negative game script before I start crowning this guy the next league winner. He's certainly talented enough. He should be. But assuming logical thinking is not always panned out. I wish it was better. Thinking of picking up Mac Jones and Newton as my streamer QBs rest of the season. I love Mac. I mean, I think best QB rating since week 5 according to PFF. Best rookie PFF grade since 2014. What's not to love about the guy? Just watching him live, I mean, every time the ball released, you had full confidence it was going to get completed, and made sense given he completed 82% of his throws. Some beautiful deep shots. They're really starting to open this offense up for him. I love it. I just think fantasy-wise, more often than not, you're going to have multiple rushing scores for the running backs, 180 to 250-ish yards and maybe 2 to 3 touchdowns. It's an okay floor, but ceiling-wise, I'd rather have Cam myself. Bear also said they're starting. Yeah, I mean, MP, this is what they should be doing. They also said all offseason, he's the next Christian McCaffrey. We're going to be using him in the passing game all offseason. I will believe it when I see it in a negative game script. It's certainly a very easy talent for me to buy in on. No doubt about that. I loved it. He was my guy last year. Won me leagues. Was my best prediction of the year last year. Trust me, you don't have to sell me on Gibson. You have to sell me on the coaching staff actually using him in the way that we hoped for. If they keep doing this, what they did this last week, he will be a league winner, and there's no doubt about it. Color me skeptical that this wasn't like a 1-week wonder. He was buoyed by a positive script for him. We'll see. I really hope so. I hope so for your sake. I hope so for Gibson's sake. He deserves it, no doubt about it. Tomas from Panama, love to see you. Hola, indeed. Que pasa? Should I drop one of these guys? Hines, Scott, McNichols for Wilson. Yes, McNichols. Get him on out of there. No need to keep him. Honestly, I don't think any of those 3 have to be rostered, but McNichols is far and away the worst option there. Oh, Damian Harris, not that. Okay, that makes a big difference, yeah. Najee being the best possible option in fantasy football right now. Ertz versus Seahawks or Muth versus Chargers this week, midnight. Probably going to go for the Muth. Chargers are giving up, I believe, the 2nd or 3rd most points in the tight end position. No, he had a costly fumble, but 18% target share was right in line with what's happening even with Ebron back. Did see a drop in routes run, but the targets still remain there. I go Muth against Chargers in that good matchup. Burrow or Wilson? I can't go back to Wilson after last week, not till I see it. So I'm definitely going Burrow in a fresh off the bye. Darrell Williams star table. I mean, Wes, he looks great, doesn't he? You know, when CH comes back, they're going to make this a gross committee that suddenly it doesn't deserve to be, but it will be. But man, that catch he made mossed somebody. Like running backs, that was a special catch for any player. Never mind a running back. I think he is legit good, not like special athletically, but gets what's out there for him blocking wise. Great hands, solid pass protector. Like should be an every down back. If they commit to that the rest of the season, it's going to be beastly. Disappointing one target, yeah, definitely. I would probably go Muth until we see Knox get himself rebacked in there. They do face the Jets oh no, that was this week. Yeah, he didn't get done in a good matchup. Never mind. So yeah, I think you could see that. I don't know. Come back tomorrow for sit starts during the week. Wednesday's our ranking show. Let me see how I sort these guys out. Patterson questionable. Pick up Ty Johnson, Stevenson, Boston Scott, or Mike Davis. I would go for Stevenson. Now, if Harris is back, it might be tough to trust him. But if those are the other options, I mean, yeah, you got to go there for Stevenson. I don't like anything about those other three. Startable, star table. That makes a little more sense. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to invite him in there with like, Jonathan Taylor, but the guy is making star-like plays. So options are Pollard, Wilson, or waiver wire dregs. I think, it depends on who those dregs are. Dregs or Piran or Gallman. Just hang on to, just keep starting the guy that's getting it done for you. And that's Darryl. Chubb will be back. It seems likely, Sarah. So I think you'll be okay having him back. Can't sell you on the coaching staff. Yeah, I agree. I 100% hate how they use him. Absolutely monster. Yeah, a wide receiver in college, not playing the passing down work. Why would you draft him that way? Could he? The reason why I was so all in is that you get those Christian McCaffrey comparisons. He's somebody that has the talent to approach those levels. There's only one Christian McCaffrey, but this guy has the explosiveness, the pass catching chops. Like he has it all. It's so frustrating to see him not get the usage he so deserves. Maybe it's injury. Maybe he just doesn't show as well in practice as he does in games. But yeah, that's my only rub. If he gets this volume moving forward, he will absolutely be a league winner. Trey S. Also flex Andrews or Mitchell. Well, Mitchell might have the broken finger, so we'll have to wait and see how that all goes. I'm probably leaning Marky Andrews, though. That guy just gets it done time and time again. Mitchell is so efficient, though, too, and he's getting more receiving work, especially if Hasty's out. This is one we just wait out and see, Trey. We don't have a firm answer on this one. I know you're pretty regular to the show. I'm not trying to force you to keep coming back. But, yeah, hopefully you can come back and hear more insight as the week drops. Continue, guys. I see a few more questions just popping in as I was about to get ready to sign off. Man, if you guys don't mind hitting that thumbs up, if you haven't already, help us to continue to get out to more people. And certainly I've seen some new faces here. Awesome. We really appreciate having you with the great interactions, great questions. If you want to continue to be part of the pack and continue to interact with us here, please consider subscribing, hitting that bell as well so you know when we're live and you can get those questions in bright and early. Would love it. Would love it, Wolfpack. We'll be live Monday through Thursday, 7 p.m. throughout the season. It would be awesome to have you along for the ride, Wolfpack. Help us to get to 2K by the end of November. We're creeping there. We're getting there. We need an injection. Help us get to those 2K subs, baby. Drop Dawson Knox for Dan Arnold. Thanks and +1. Whew, tough one because of how good Knox was. The tight end 3 in fantasy before you got hurt. The upside certainly lies with Knox, but if you need a very steady flow, like I would really see, is there anyone else you could drop and keep Knox stashed and see if he regains what he was doing in a couple weeks? Let's say I'd say we want to see Knox get like 1 to 2 more weeks. I would bench him for Dan Arnold moving forward. I would like if you could have both these guys on the roster, Bulldog, because I think Arnold will give you that nice, steady 8 to 12, but the ceiling is very capped. Knox, if he regains what he was doing, is a league winner. So I'd like to be able to hold them both. I know it can be tight. So if push comes to shove, you just need something to use right now. Dan Arnold is better to use right now, but I would like to have them both if possible. Fitz definitely could have helped that play out for sure. Yeah, it's too bad for sure. I think it's all good points. You're with me. All good points, man. Pick 2: Williams versus Pitt, Myers versus Atlanta, Kirk versus Seattle, or Gallup versus Kansas City. Can't be Gallup yet. Didn't do a whole ton here. I still think he's like about 4th or 5th on the target totem pole here. I'm gonna go gun to my head right now. Myers Probably Mike Williams, but I just don't know. I don't know. But I think this boils down to, do you play Myers on Thursday? And I think you do. I think you do. Pick up Robbie Anderson. I would go Sterling Shepard, definitely. I think that's much steadier here than Robbie Anderson. Sutton droppable. He could be William. It's tough to drop a talent like that, but I don't know if you saw my tweet about him. He's been the wide receiver 104, 64, and 82 in the games with Judy this year. Bridgewater just can't sustain that many good receivers. None of them are really being sustained right now, but he's been by far the biggest drop-off. Come back for a reason. I love to hear it, Trey. You're the man. Appreciate the support. Packers worth a flyer, not worth the first waiver. Defense is never worth the first raiser, no. Another thing that doesn't make sense is they give Gibson like 20 touches versus yeah, right? I don't get it. The game flow just doesn't seem to work out against bad defenses. They just play to the level of their opponents. Is what I kind of chalk that up to. What up, Inceptivus? Great to see you. I start Pitts versus Pats or Knox versus Colts. Tough one, Inceptivus. It's always tough to bench Pitts, but like, I think this one comes down to, does Cordarrelle play or not? And you want Cordarrelle to play, because if not, they will 100% Pats focus on taking Pitts out. And clearly he can get taken out of games. I'd go Knox there. Thanks. Good night, Emperor. Thanks for coming, Roth Tiberius Kane. Great to see you. Thoughts on Logan before you leave? Logan Thomas, if that's who you're talking about. I mean, easiest playoff schedule among tight ends. He's always been a consistent part of that offense. He's worth a stash for now. As long as you're keeping that IR, why not? Which would you sit this week? Jeff Wilson if Mitchell's out, Gibson, or Dillon? Even if Mitchell's out, I think I sit Wilson. It could be between him and Gibson. I don't know who Gibson's playing. I do my ranking show tomorrow, Gabriel, where I'll have my rankings all set. I'll look at the points against. I'll have a better answer for you there. So if you want to come on back, 7 p.m. tomorrow, we'll be live with those thoughts. And that goes out to everybody. So thank you again so much, Wolfpack. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Will, for your kind words. We really appreciate that. You keep up the awesome support. We really appreciate that, Wolfpack. They'll do that comeback regularly. And if you haven't already subbed, would definitely mean the world. You can give us that thumbs up button to help us continue to get out to more people. It does help us continue to grow immensely. We want to get to 2K by the end of the month. It would mean the world. Kurt, you snuck one in. I'll get it for you. Why not? Stevenson. Oh, no. That's brutal. Put Gibson and Robinson on the bench too. You won. Hey, you won. You can make stupid decisions and still win, and it doesn't matter. Glad you got the win. Let's continue to check in about those decisions this week, though, brother. Hopefully we can help you make some better ones. I might have directed you the wrong way, too. I'm not imperfect by any means this year. Pretty far from it. But thank you again so much for being here, guys. Hit that thumbs up on the way out if you don't mind. And if you haven't, hit the sub. Mean the world. All our content is on rotostreetjournal.com. You'll find my rankings, waiver wire pieces, all that good stuff over there in that world full of fantasy sheep. Wolf pack. Be the wolf. Until next time. Later, guys.